you got kind of the end cap, I guess, to the Hand of Thrawn.
Oh, yeah.
I remembered from when I was a kid having read the big comic that was the marriage of Reed Richards and Sue Storm, the Fantastic Four, and I said, why don't we do the marriage of Luke and Mara Jade? And all of a sudden, everybody thought that was a brilliant idea. I had one of those geek out moments where I was just started doing issue 3, and it just struck me, oh my God, I'm marrying off 2 icons. That was the only time that I really was aware of this whole meta thing going on. So I freaked out for about 5 minutes and then went back to work.
How do you go about writing or coming up with ideas for a wedding? In that case, I guess 2 weddings. The Jedi one in sort of the public ceremony. For Star Wars, when obviously there's no Earthbound tradition to adhere to, and Earthbound traditions would probably make it kind of jarring to see that within the Star Wars universe, how do you make it seem like, yes, we know this is a wedding ceremony, and yet still make it take place in a galaxy far, far away?
Well, you have to look at human rituals. You have to realize that what we see as the traditional wedding in just the Western Christian culture versus any of the other religions that we have to deal with. I mean, if you start looking at all the wedding ceremonies, you kind of pull out the things that unify them. These people are pledging themselves to each other. This is an expression of love, and you're showing it and sharing it with everybody else. And so, with those precepts in mind, then you go back and you go, okay, how do you think this would be done? Well, he's from this planet, so they might have this stuff. She's from here, she might want this stuff. Other people are going to be influencing it. And then how are the Jedi going to see this union? And if the Jedi are going to be doing it, how are we going to be using the Force to help symbolize this sort of thing? And for me, it was great fun to have to sit down and try and figure out not only that, but, how do we handle the traditions of, a bachelor party and a bachelorette party and all of those things that I sort of figured, because I certainly was interested, I sort of figured that all the fans would be interested in going, okay, how is this handled in that universe? It was just great fun. And like I said, the guys at Lucasfilm really trusted me a great deal on being able to get that stuff right. So.
There was something that came out about Union was the artwork, and that in a lot of places there were characters who were drawn that very much resembled Hollywood actors, for instance. When you do something like that, when you're doing a longer story and dealing in some cases with characters that you had originally created, do you go through and get a chance to really kind of suggest, well, this person should look a little bit like so-and-so, this is how I assume that they would have aged, or anything like that? Or do you leave that pretty much to the artist at this point?
That was left up to the artist, and that was all Rich Teranici deciding what those looks were going to be within certain bounds. I think only twice did I have actual pictures that I clipped out of magazines or catalogs that I had been using as my visualization of certain characters. I think only twice did I send those in to Dark Horse to pass on to artists.
Okay.
But for the most part, I am in total awe of what artists do. So whenever I wrote a script, I would always send it in and saying, I would have done the page breakdown, I would have described all the characters up front, but I would always send it in with the advisory of going, this is what I think it should be, but you're the artist, make it work, make it real. And both Pete James and all the artists that I worked with did. I think they just did a stunning job. I really enjoyed seeing all the issues come out.
True.